All right, welcome to Ep.1 of the Inside the Lines podcast, where we will have updates on all sports news and give our takes on the future of sports. My name is Chase Stanley. I'm joined by Marcos Abell and Thomas Burbank. We're going to try something new here. Hopefully we can get it rolling, see how it goes. Let's start right off in the conference championship games. We'll start in the AFC. Joe Burrow and the Bengals took on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Went out of there in overtime, 27-24. Moving on to the Super Bowl, thanks to another game-winning field goal by Shooter McPherson. What do we think, boys? Thoughts on the game?
I did not want the Chiefs winning. I couldn't handle the Chiefs in a fourth straight Super Bowl. Or just fourth straight AFC. I can't.
Yeah, I have to agree. Very happy that even though the Chiefs won the toss, they didn't win the game. Sure, a lot of Chiefs fans will be trying to change the overtime rules after that one.
I will say, though, watching that game, the second half, the Bengals D stepped up, but Patrick Mahomes is just so good. I don't know how he gets stopped by any defense ever. It just makes no sense to me.
Him and Kelsey are just a dynamic duo.
Oh, for sure. Tyreek as well. Especially from the Bills game, that one touchdown he had where he just ran by everybody.
Tyreek Hill's insane. I honestly think he's underrated when we're talking about the top wide receivers in the league.
For sure. Because, a lot of people look at his speed, because obviously that's his defining feature, but he's really good at the catch point and route running as well. And his speed is just different. There's nobody like him in the NFL in terms of, acceleration.
However, that is not what we're here to talk about. The Bengals, Joe Burrow led them to the Super Bowl in his second year, coming off of a torn ACL. What do we think, boys? Joe Burrow, young goat.
He is that guy.
He is that guy.
He is the hope for Ohio sports. Currently,
Cincinnati,
Joey franchise right there.
Yep. Had 4 wins last year, 2 wins the year before. With those 2 picks, draft Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, immediately Super Bowl. If that's not proof to every other NFL team that they need to get the quarterback, I don't know what is. Because they got their guy and they're immediately right where they needed to be after being one of the worst franchises in the NFL history.
Mm-hmm. Haven't won a playoff.
It's not even like they had... True. And their complete roster, they didn't even have a complete roster turnaround. In most of the playoff games, Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times in the Titans game. Their roster holes show, and he's still getting it done. He had a couple plays, he had a couple third and longs in that second half of that Kansas City game where he should have gotten sacked, and he somehow just made the play and ran out to a first.
Some of those runs by him were insane.
During the Kansas City game, he didn't get sacked, did he? I think
he got sacked once.
He might have gotten sacked once.
He got sacked once.
He had 1 sack.
I think there was more sacks on Patrick Mahomes than there was Joe Burrow.
Major improvement by the Bengals O-line after getting sacked 9 times against the Titans.
And that Chiefs defensive front is no joke. Chris Jones, Frank Clark. The Titans have a really good one too, but I was a little bit worried for him going.
I was shocked by the Bengals defense in the second half. After that first half, I thought there was no way that they were going to do anything.
Once they were down 18, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna watch something else until the NFC Championship game. I'm like,
let's talk about Shooter McPherson though. 2
5th-round draft pick.
5th-round draft pick, 2 game-winning field goals in a row in the playoffs as a rookie. He became the NFL leader for field goals of 50 yards and over this season as a rookie. He's gonna be great. The confidence of that kid is insane.
I believe he's 11 for 11 inside in the postseason. He currently has not missed a kick in the postseason.
I don't think he has either. I agree with that.
That is an incredible stat by a rookie. Incredible.
Especially by
the confidence.
He's come up clutch in every single game.
When you can say to one of your coaches, looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game before you take the kick, that's just elite level confidence that honestly only him and Joe Burrow have right now. Joe Burrow's confidence is insane to me still.
If the Bengals win the Super Bowl this year, it's going to be solely on the confidence of the players. Compared to all the other teams that people thought were going to come out of the AFC this year, nobody thought the Bengals were going to get there, and they've just really pulled through.
I agree.
Joe Mixon did a lot for that
team. Joe Mixon's the heart and soul of that team in the locker room. He's the captain. He's been on the team for the longest, I believe, maybe. I think he's the longest tenured player on the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken.
That's crazy if that's true. He's only 25.
Yeah, I know.
Really shows how young this team is
I know.
Overall.
Shows you where they're going.
It might not be true, but I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere. All right. with that being said, crazy game out of that. Let's move on to the NFC, 49ers versus Rams. Matthew Stafford led them to a victory. Rams are going to the Super Bowl. What do we think, boys?
I think the Rams definitely deserve to win that game. They have the better roster overall, better quarterback. I think they have a couple of players who I think really deserve to win a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, obviously. I mean, going to the Lions, what did he have? 1 playoff appearance and 0 wins. I think
he had 3 0 wins.
Oh, so 3 playoff appearances with 0 wins. Because I don't think he had a playoff win before.
No, he has more playoff wins this year than playoff games that he's played in. So pretty big for Matthew Stafford, coming from arguably, I'd say, the worst franchise in the NFL, the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Going immediately, taking this team to a Super Bowl. There's not much else you can say about him, man.
In 1 year time.
No.
Big part of that, though, Cooper Kupp, legendary season, another legendary game, 147 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns in this game. Cooper Kupp, I don't know how he gets open, but he's just always open.
He's open every
There's something about that man that defenses just cannot figure him out. And the fact that he is able to block and line up in the backfield, almost like Deebo Samuel, but not to the same degree as Deebo Samuel is literally a running back that plays wide receiver. But but Cooper Kupp can do it all.
Deebo Samuel carried the 49ers. He put that I cannot say enough about that man. They would not be where they are without Deebo Samuel. Jimmy Garoppolo did not play great. He scrambled under pressure. He made some awful throws that I thought easily could have been intercepted. It's just I didn't enjoy the 49ers performance, and I didn't think they were ever going to win.
No, there's no doubt Deebo Samuel is definitely the heart and soul of that team. He does it all, obviously. He does more than Cooper Kupp, and I would argue, from a fantasy perspective, Deebo Samuel should be a top 5 pick next year. Because
he will totally agree.
Because Thomas Thomas has some ideas in his head already if he gets a top 5 pick. Yeah. I see that.
Another thing crazy about that is he went undrafted in our fantasy league, and I assume across a lot of fantasy leagues he was drafted.
Most fantasy leagues, I believe he was undrafted and was a waiver wire pickup.
Just want to say
an absolutely crazy breakout year for him. Good for
Thomas did pick him up, so. And
even looking at
he lost in the playoffs to me. Okay, continuing.
Sure.
Actually, both of these guys.
Looking at the game. Sure. Looking at the game as well, Jimmy Garoppolo threw 2 touchdowns. One of those was a screen pass to Deebo Samuel behind the line of scrimmage, and he broke that for a 40-yard touchdown.
Those screen passes to Deebo Samuel. There's been a couple of them in the past couple of weeks that he just goes crazy, and it's plays like those that his potential is insane, and we didn't even see it before this season. But his potential is crazy.
You just saw how devastated he was after that loss that when Odell Beckham came up and consoled him.
Speaking of Odell Beckham, how about him getting over 100 yards receiving for the first time in his last 33 games, I believe?
Really?
Yep, 33 games.
That is crazy.
Since 2019.
Since 2019, on the Browns, he looked like his career was over. May have rejuvenated it here with the Rams. What do you guys think of his performance? I think he's stepping up big time to a point where he could be a number 1 receiver on a team next year.
I think he'll definitely go to a different team next year. He's definitely proven that he can be a number 1 receiver for the right quarterback. I think if he's going to go anywhere, it's got to be to a veteran quarterback that's has an established presence. Maybe to the Raiders with Derek Carr or wherever Aaron Rodgers goes if he leaves Green Bay. But I think he's had a great season so far. He has 8 or 9 touchdowns since joining the Rams this year.
I think
he had 6
more touchdowns on the Rams than he had on the Browns in his entire time there.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy.
If I'm not mistaken, he had 6 in his in the regular season with the Rams, which I think was also the same amount that he had.
He kind of slowed down towards the end of the season, but back in the playoffs, he's been stepping it up again, which is great to see out of him. I'm happy for him. He's a little bit of a diva, but he's kind of calmed down, and I think he deserved to make it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
100%.
All right. Now let's move on to a topic that I am very passionate about, which is Joe Burrow is the coolest white guy on the planet behind Jack Harlow. And listen, I wrote this take before the AFC Championship game. I might put him up there with Jack Harlow, if not above. There is no limit to how cool this man is. How can you not love Joe Burrow? What is there to hate about him? Urban Meyer at Ohio State told him that he threw like a girl. He then transferred and won a national championship. He has the sickest sunglasses on the planet, loads of confidence. He's a winner at heart. And with a nickname like Joe Burr, what are you going to do?
You
He's
can't
the
stop
coolest
him at
white
this
man on the
point.
planet.
I mean, he went into Tennessee and he dominated. I mean, they beat the number 1 team. A lot of people did not think the Bengals were going to win that game, me included.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought that they were going to lose the game against the Raiders. I mean, Derek Carr was showing up, and then they go and beat them. They beat the number 1 and the number 2 seeds in the AFC, one of them in overtime, with arguably the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, after they went on to beat the Bills in the divisional round and probably one of the best games of all time. And Joe Burrow is just something else to me. Like the jump from year 1 to year 2, I know he had the torn ACL, but even watching him in the first half of the season, I didn't think he was – I thought Herbert was already like pretty much guaranteed to – looks like the better quarterback, and Joe Burrow is definitely making a statement against that.
Honestly, I might put Joe Burrow above Justin Herbert at this point. Justin Herbert has all the skill in the world, and he does everything great, but I would argue that the Chargers have more for Justin Herbert to make a playoff run than the Bengals have for Joe Burrow to make a playoff run. And Joe Burrow's out there doing it right now. He's in the Super Bowl. Might win.
And at no point did he ever look like concerned while playing. Like he always was laser focused, locked in, and confident. Like that is a crazy
one thing
drive to have.
That I like to point out is that in that Titans game, he got sacked 9 times, and not once was he on the sideline yelling at his O-lineman like, "Come on, you got to get it together." He didn't slam anything. He sat there, watched his film, went back out on the field, and won the game. Sent them to the AFC Championship, and then they won another one, and now they're in the Super Bowl. That's the definition of a franchise quarterback. There's not much else that you can say about Joe Burrow.
You just can't hate Joe Burrow. You really can't.
I mean, he's gone to the AFC Championship game with arguably one of the worst rosters in the playoffs. I mean, like aside from like, I think definitely the worst roster out of all the conference winner or the division winners.
I think they had I'd put the Raiders below them.
Also the Steelers, I would.
Oh yeah, the Steelers. I didn't even count the Steelers. I forgot about them.
Same with the Eagles, but
Chargers deserve.
I'd say they probably had the fourth or 5th worst roster in the playoffs.
Yeah,
behind 2 7 seeds, and realistically, the 7th seed is kind of irrelevant in the playoffs anyway.
So
at least it has been in its.
We get Joe Burrow's the coolest man alive. It's no need to debate that. What do we think about the Super Bowl, boys? What's your predictions? We'll start with Marcos. What do you think?
I love Joe Burrow. I'm probably going to end up taking the safe pick the Rams. I think they definitely have the better roster. I think Joe Burrow is going to keep it close. I think they'll probably win by a field goal. Feeling 30-27 Rams, probably as time expires. But I just don't think Joe Burrow can overcome his offensive line against Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller. I think those guys are just going to be too much for him. I don't think they're going to be able to get it done.
Thomas?
Yeah, I'm also going with the Rams. I just don't think – I mean, they're at home. I mean, look at Tampa. They did the same thing last year, and they dominated. And I'm going with the Rams.
Well, here's where you guys are wrong. I learned many years ago from a man named Tom Brady that when you have a winner at quarterback, you don't count him out. I'm taking the Bengals, and I'm also going 30-27, but I'm going Bengals. Winning field goal again by McPherson. I think Joe Burrow pulls it out. He is a pure winner at heart. Matthew Stafford has all the skill in the world, but he also has the ability to throw away games. And I think if that Bengals defense can play the way that they played against Patrick Mahomes, they can do just as much to Matthew Stafford as the Rams defense will be doing to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow finds a way to pull it out, and I think the Bengals are your next Super Bowl champions out of nowhere.
That would be crazy. I honestly, I would love it. I want the Bengals to win, but realistically, I think Rams, and that's just my opinion.
I love both teams, so I have no bias here. I think the Rams are the better team, but I can't count out the better quarterback, in my opinion.
All right.
Well, we'll see how it goes in 2 weeks.
Yes, we will. All right. Now, let's move on to Marcos. I believe you have a topic about Jimmy Garoppolo versus Trey Lance. What are we thinking about the future of Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco?
So as we all watched the other night, the Niners were knocking on the door of another Super Bowl appearance. Jimmy Garoppolo got the ball back with 1 minute 46 seconds left. I think they had one timeout. They might have had no timeouts, but he was given pretty much the full 2 minutes to go down the field and score. All they needed was a field goal to tie the game, and he just couldn't get it done. I mean, he goes out on the field, 1 minute 46 left. They have an incompletion and then a pass for like -3 yards. And then he gets like absolutely enveloped on 3rd and long and like throws backwards, like as threw it for a pick as his last play of the game. I think that series itself pretty much defines what's going to happen to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's probably going to get traded. I think you can probably get a second, maybe a conditional 1st-round pick for him because, I mean, he has been to the conference championship twice, made Super Bowl. But I just don't think he's the guy. I mean, when you're looking around the league at guys like Mahomes, Josh Allen, I mean, that game from last week was just remarkable. Like you have to look at yourself in that position with your quarterback and be like, can my quarterback play this type of game against either of these quarterbacks? And with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think the answer is just no. And also, I mean, if you're looking at his stats through these games, I mean, he had a couple of touchdowns, couple picks, but like the Deebo Samuel touchdown, some of those are just where like there's a lot of other quarterbacks who make those throws. Also, I mean, like some people might be thinking, how can you expect Jimmy Garoppolo to go down with 1:46 left against Aaron Donald, throwing into coverage by Jalen Ramsey with one timeout left to go and score? And to that, I just say I didn't expect the 6th-round pick from Michigan to be able to come back 27-3 with 7 minutes left against that same team. But he did that last week.
You cannot be comparing Jimmy Garoppolo to Tom freaking Brady right now.
That's not my point.
That's not an argument. You can't put that in there.
But my point is that there are quarterbacks in this league that can just make things
There's
happen.
Tom Brady.
Regardless of the odds.
There's Tom Brady. He
There
is
is
in a
Tom
separate
Brady.
category of his own.
You can't make the argument that the things that the greatest football player of all time did, this guy can't do. That can't be a part of your argument.
I mean,
I
are
agree
you
with
saying
a lot of what you're saying. What do you think as far as Trey Lance goes? Like, do you think he's ready?
I think
No.
it doesn't really matter, I think, if he's ready. It's that you've spent 3 first-round picks on him, so you have to see if he is the guy. I mean, it's been a year in Kyle Shanahan's offense. I think Kyle Shanahan's a great quarterback. I mean, he's done a lot with Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think we would all say is probably an average 10 to 20 quarterback.
Kyle Shanahan is not a great quarterback. But
or coach, my bad.
Continue.
But, I mean, I think you got to give the kid a shot because you're not going to know if he's the guy unless you throw him out there. And I mean, like we've seen with other quarterbacks, like Mahomes was sat his first year, and then he ended up blowing up the league. So I'm not saying Trey Lance is going to be Patrick Mahomes, but you got to give him that chance. And I think you know what you have with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just don't think it's enough against all these other quarterbacks that can. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, with 13 seconds left, drove his team down to score a field goal. So like you have quarterbacks in this league that can just make things happen. And I mean, same with Matt Stafford in that Buccaneers game. They got the ball back tied with 40 seconds left. They go down, I think, with like 1 timeout, 2 timeouts, and get that field goal. So you have quarterbacks across the league that we've seen in these past like 2 weeks alone, like in the playoffs, which is what the Niners should be looking at because I think with their roster, they're an every year playoff.
I would say those are tier 1 quarterbacks. I would not put Jimmy Garoppolo as a tier 1 quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo is a tier 2 quarterback, but currently they are winning. I agree they have the roster to win. I just don't think if they did start Trey, I don't think that they would go to the playoffs next year.
Here's my thing. Jimmy Garoppolo, he does not put up the stats, but he's a guy that you want in your locker room. He's a great guy. Nobody's arguing that. And as a starting quarterback, his winning percentage is .702, which is the same as Peyton Manning and higher than Aaron Rodgers, who's his .665. You can't deny success, no matter how.
Starting?
As a starting quarterback. You can't deny success, no matter how you look at it. His stats, he doesn't look the best. When you watch him on the field, he doesn't look the best, but he pulls out wins. Now, that might be Kyle Shanahan, but when he's not on the field, they don't win. It's just plain and simple. They do not win when he's not on the field. For whatever reason it may be, maybe he's a great leader. Maybe that's what he got from Tom Brady for being his backup for however many years, 4 years or something like that. But when he's on the field, they win football games. And that's what this league is about. He brought them to a Super Bowl. He almost brought them to another Super Bowl this year when, if we're being honest, halfway through the season, we didn't even think the 49ers would make the playoffs.
No.
And now he brought them to an NFC championship game, beat Aaron Rodgers. I know he didn't play well against Aaron Rodgers, but he won the game. He was the winning quarterback. And Trey Lance, in the past 3 years, has played in one football game. How can you trust a guy that's played in one football? He's been into 49ers games. He started in one football game. He started one game with North Dakota State in 2020, and then he started 16 in 2019. In all, at North Dakota State, he played 19 games. He's not ready to. Maybe he is. But if you have a quarterback that's winning games and taking you to the NFC Championship, at least stick with him until you're 100% sure Trey Lance is ready. If the 49ers organization is thinking this guy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo and he's going to win us more games, then go for it. But you can't deny that when Jimmy Garoppolo is on the field, they win games, and when he's not, they don't.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I guess it is hard to go against Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he does have the winning percentage. He's like 35-15 as a starter, 5-2 in the playoffs. They're like 8-20 something when he's not there. Although I will say, like, that's a lot of backup quarterbacks because of his injury history. But I think if they believe Trey Lance is the guy and they believe that he can be a top 5 to 10 quarterback, then they should go with him and trade Jimmy Garoppolo.
How many games did Trey Lance start this year?
This year, I think it was 1 or 2.
Did they win those games?
He played maybe.
So what I'm saying here, I believe he started 3 games, and his passer rating was above 115 every single time, if I'm correct. But then, I don't know. Listen, if the 49ers organization think that he's ready, then by all means go with it. But I'm just saying you can't go against winning. That's all that matters in this league. Tom Brady didn't look like the quarterback, and I'm making the same comparison you did because you compared him to Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't look like the quarterback his rookie year, and obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is not in his rookie year, but he won football games. So he might not look the best on the field, but if he's winning football games and Trey Lance isn't going to win you football games, then why switch to Trey Lance?
That's up to the 49ers coaching staff and
yeah, I mean, it's all
general
up to them,
organization.
really.
We're just giving our takes, and we can't. Yeah, we don't know. We don't speak for the organization.
All right, big news these past couple weeks. Tom Brady said to have retired by Adam Schefter. Then a message from his agent came out. Maybe he's not retiring. He will be the only one to determine whether or not he's retiring. His father said that he is not retiring, and he told the Bucs GM that he is not even close to making a decision. What do we think? Great career out of Tom Brady if this is the end. He's obviously undisputably the best quarterback of all time, best football player of all time, in my opinion, best athlete of all time.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Tom Brady was to retire, I think it's a perfectly good note of where to retire. I mean, he was down, was it 27-3 or
27-3?
Yep.
27-3 and nearly came back and won the game. I think overall, even though they didn't get the win, I think that just proves a testament to his age, stature, and teammates and his leadership to come all that way. He is currently 44 years old, and he does say he wants to spend more time with his family, and his wife is encouraging him to possibly step back. I think, all things aside, Tom Brady's a great athlete, but maybe it is his time to retire. I think he can still play in this league and currently has everything to do with it. I think he should. I think personally, I would love him to see him, but I think if he did retire, I'd be okay with it. I mean, he earned it. I think if anyone's earned retirement, it's him.
Yeah, I would agree. I think based on what we've seen so far, I mean, with Adam Schefter, It kind of sounds like from a report I saw that he's leaning toward retirement, but he's still obviously nowhere close to a decision. I don't think that would have gotten released if it wasn't his current thought process. Like he's planning on retiring, obviously, probably going to come before free agency. So that, like, to give the Buccaneers time. I personally don't think he should retire yet. I think he's got a lot of football left to play. He set career highs in pretty much every passing stat that wasn't touchdowns this year, and I think he deserves to win the MVP. Between probably him, Aaron Rodgers, and I would say Joe Burrow. But obviously, I mean, with the Buccaneers, they're kind of in a win now mode with all their contracts, so that team's probably not going to stay together the long term. I think he's probably got like 2 or 3 years left of good quarterback play. Obviously, he's just a different person. Like you can't compare him to anybody, like in terms of like age and how he's playing. I think he could definitely keep playing, but I mean, if 45 is when he's going to go, that's probably the longest tenured quarterback that's going to be able to win a Super Bowl. I don't think anybody's going to be able to do what he's doing at this age.
Do you think he would stay on the Bucs?
I think he would.
Yeah,
I don't think it makes sense.
He'd stay on the Bucs. Well, listen, he led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns at the age of 44. That is unheard of. I believe he deserves to win the MVP as well. He could keep playing, maybe for another 5 years if he wanted to. But at this point in his career, he has nothing left to prove. He left the Patriots, went to a team that didn't. They were 8-8 the year before.
7-9.
7-9. Even worse, 7-9. And he took that team with like basically the same roster. If you add Antonio Brown on there and a couple other guys that aren't huge, and he took that team and won a Super Bowl with them. He proved that he's just that guy. He's the leader. He can go to a team and win. I bet he could go to the Lions and make them like close to a playoff team. With his type of leadership, he's proved everything that he needs to. He did it without Belichick. He has nothing left to prove. And I think at this point in his career, he's probably thinking, I've reached the top and I want to be with my family now. So if he chooses to retire, I think he'll still be the GOAT for forever.
I don't think anyone will.
I don't think anyone will pass him.
Yeah.
Maybe in 50 years from now, somebody will be better than Tom Brady, but for now, I just don't see it happening. And he's accomplished everything he needs, and he doesn't need to stay in this league any longer if he wants to do other things. We had another big retirement, Ben Roethlisberger. He retired a couple weeks ago, so it's not really news. We knew he was going to retire, but it was kind of cool to see him make it to the playoffs again. His last game at Heinz Field was very emotional. I watched that live. I love to see that, and what a great career out of him. There's not much else you can say about him. He was a workhorse. I mean, we're all going to remember him for these last couple of years where he wasn't necessarily the most athletic or did the most on the field, but early in his career, he was an all-time great.
Agreed. I think he is going to go into the Hall of Fame and
first ballot.
I mean,
no doubt.
First ballot. Yeah,
for sure.
I'm excited to see where the Steelers go. I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, me too.
I think they're not going to go. I think they're just going to plummet a little bit. That's just
I don't know. We can discuss that a little bit.
I don't know. Well, maybe we'll save that for another episode. See what happens in the free agency a little bit, because that's the Steelers is an interesting one. Let's now that we've talked about the big retirements, also just Sean Payton. That's another big one.
Oh yeah.
Got to talk about him. Coaching career, great coaching career with the Saints.
Love that man.
Won a Super Bowl with Drew Brees. He's a great coach. Not so much else you can say about it. Let's move on to our quarterback rankings. Marcos, would you like to kick us off with your top 10 quarterbacks in the league?
Sure. I'll kick us off. So, do you want to go from 10 to 1 or 1 to 10?
Let's go 10 to 1.
How do you want to do this? 10 to 1. All right. So, I kind of just threw this together. It's kind of basically who would I want like for one season. So at 10, I have Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great quarterback. My only problem is, I mean, like as it's been kind of shown, like he does run first. He's a run first quarterback. Like when the pocket breaks down, He's done a lot. He's definitely improved his throwing a lot in the past couple of years. He obviously won an MVP. But I think just compared to some of the other quarterbacks, there's some other players I'd rather have. And then at 9, I have Matt Stafford, obviously, turned the Rams around, brought to a Super Bowl. Kyler Murray is just different. I have him at number 8. Just the stuff that he can do moving outside the pocket, his acceleration. There was one play against the Rams. It was like a 3rd and 15 where like the pocket broke down. It looked like it was going to be a sack, and he just cut up the sideline and got the full 15 yards, which I just didn't think he would have an angle to do that, but he's just a different guy. And then number 7, I have Justin Herbert. I think he's doing a lot with the Chargers. Last year, his rookie season, he won Rookie of the Year behind like statistically the worst offensive line in the league. And then at 5, that's 6. I have Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty. He brought his team to a Super Bowl, losing team. And then 5, I have Russell Wilson. 4, currently I have Josh Allen. A lot of that is based on his current playoff, like his last playoff performances. He's unstoppable. Mm-hmm. He's a crazy quarterback. 3, I have Tom Brady, obviously the GOAT, but with the retirement rumors. And then 2, Aaron Rodgers. And then 1 is Patrick Mahomes for me. He's just on another level. He's just doing it. He just keeps doing it on the biggest stage. 4 consecutive home AFC championship games as his first 4 years as a starter. If anybody has a chance to be the next Tom Brady, I think it's Patrick Mahomes.
Yep, I'd agree. I didn't really finish my list, but but I'm going to start with number 1. I also have Patrick Mahomes number 1. The stuff that he does is insane. We've never seen anything like it. He can do anything with a football that he wants, and he had a little bit of a rough stretch. He's had even his 3rd year in the league, I believe he only had like 23 touchdowns. But when he's on, he's the best quarterback. He's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. Number 2, I have Tom Brady. He's 44 still, leading the league in every statistical stat. How can you not put him in the top 3? Like, he has to be up there. Number 3, I have Aaron Rodgers. I don't love what he did in the playoffs, but obviously he's a great quarterback. He's might win back-to-back MVPs. Number 4, I have Josh Allen. Again, same thing with Patrick Mahomes. The stuff that he does on that football field is insane to me. Watching that Chiefs versus Bills game, those 2 quarterbacks are going to be number 1 and 2 for a while, a long time, because they can just do some insane things. And then number 5, I have Joe Burrow above people like Russell Wilson, as you had in your list. Joe Burrow, the difference for me between Joe Burrow and Russell Wilson is that Russell Wilson took his team in his 2nd year, I believe, to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow did the same thing. Russell Wilson's team was carried by Marshawn Lynch and a defense that was arguably one of the best of all time. Joe Burrow has Joe Mixon, who was a top 10 running back, but he's not carrying the team. He had a offensive line that wasn't in the top 20, and his defense was average, and he took that team to the Super Bowl. I think Joe Burrow is better now than Russell Wilson, and I think he will be better in the future because of Russell Wilson's age. I think all time Russell Wilson is better, but Joe Burrow is just getting started. Then I have Justin Herbert above Russell Wilson as well, just because Justin Herbert has insane talent, and I see him being an MVP in a couple years. And then I have Russell Wilson. And then I'm going with Matt Stafford. And that's where my list stopped, but I'd probably go with Lamar Jackson next. I mean, at that point, it all gets... Oh, no. Sorry. After Russell Wilson, I'd go with Kyler Murray. And then Matthew Stafford. And then Lamar Jackson, then Derek Carr for me. That's my list. I wasn't as prepared as you, Marcus. I don't know. There's
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't remember what the order
I don't
was.
have a list, but number one, Mac Jones. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay.
Oh, I have
Yep.
something to say about that. We'll get to that in a second. But all right, let's now that we've done that, everyone knows where we are in QB rankings. Let's move on to Aaron Rodgers' future with Green Bay. What do we think, Marcus?
Well, obviously, the last dance didn't go as planned. Losing to a team who didn't score an offensive touchdown in your first playoff game is probably not what Aaron Rodgers thought going into the season. Obviously, I mean, him and the Packers, number one seed in the NFC. They did it with a lot of defensive injuries. Jair Alexander was out most of the year. Same with Zadarius Smith. And I honestly think that he'll probably end up staying with the Packers. I don't understand why the Packers would want to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's probably about to have back-to-back MVP caliber seasons, or he's going to win the MVP twice. And I mean, if Jordan Love, what we saw from Jordan Love in that one game against the Chiefs, and I think he played at the second half of the Detroit game, nothing I saw made me think that he was anywhere close to Aaron Rodgers or will ever be anywhere close to Aaron Rodgers. So if I were the Packers, I would probably trade Jordan Love this season, sign Rodgers to a 2 or 3 year extension, get Devontae Adams back. I think you'd probably lose him if Aaron Rodgers leaves. There's probably like a 95% chance of that. I mean, you could franchise tag him for a year, but I don't see Devontae Adams staying in Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers doesn't. If he does, however, choose to part ways, which I could see happening, I mean, after the game, I mean, you never know with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he likes to put blame on other people sometimes. Even like though he didn't have, I mean, he had a pretty poor game. But one possible landing spot for me would definitely be the Denver Broncos. They did recently just hire the Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett as the new head coach. Rodgers has previously stated like he's had a lot of respect for the guy. I think that is a move that the Broncos make, which would like potentially like their idea is they hire him that will help them maybe grab Aaron Rodgers since there were some rumors of him going to the Broncos before that. I think that's probably one of the best landing spots for him. I mean, they have a pretty good roster going 7-10 in a really good AFC West division without a quarterback pretty much. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was a pretty below average quarterback this year. And then one thing about Hackett is he was the offensive coordinator for the Jags when they went to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles, and I don't know who the hell they had on that Jaguars team.
Fournette.
But I think that probably shows some
I
credit.
don't think Fournette was on that team.
I think he was.
I thought he was.
Oh, he may not have been. He may
don't
not
think
have
he was
been
drafted yet
on the team by that time.
My apologies.
Yeah, well, they had a great defense that will do it.
Yeah.
But listen, Aaron Rodgers is a diva at quarterback, but he's extremely talented, and it makes no sense for the Packers to want to move on from him, and I don't think they do. I think they know that Jordan Love is not the quarterback of the future, and they need to keep Aaron Rodgers around until they can get the quarterback of the future. But at this point, I don't see Aaron Rodgers winning a Super Bowl in his career anymore. I don't think he cares enough about the sport of football to put his differences aside and play as a team. He just does not seem like he wants it bad enough. He wants whatever's best for him. And maybe he'll go to the Broncos and completely change it around and win a Super Bowl with the Broncos because all of a sudden he's going to love everything that's coming his way. But I just don't see it happening. He's not a winner. He's, in my mind, the most talented quarterback of all time, but he's not a winner.
I agree, and I don't think he's staying with Green Bay. I don't think Devontae Adams is staying with Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to go into a rebuilding season, if that's just me personally. I think Rodgers could be going to the Steelers. I think Steelers are a very good candidate to possibly get him. I think they have the coaching staff and talent to get him. And I think Adams will part ways, and I think that will also push Rodgers more into the free agency and his options. I agree with you. I think Rodgers is a diva, and I don't think he plays. I think he plays for himself. I think he goes and he looks at stats, and I think he says there's no I in team, but there is an M and an E, and I think that's kind of his mindset.
Yeah. Well, I like that you say he looks at stats because one of the big things in that 49ers game versus what we saw in all the other games were the best quarterbacks were taking shots. He played it safe that entire game, and it lost him the game. And I saw him do that all season. they would lose leads. They would win the games because they were the better team, but they would lose leads because he was playing it safe the whole time and not taking his shots with the talent that he has, which led him to having 4 interceptions this year. That's why he had 4 interceptions, because he wasn't taking shots, these big shots like Joe Burrow is taking, who led the league in big plays this year and is now in the Super Bowl. He had like 10 more interceptions than, I think maybe even more than that.
Probably
10 more interceptions than Aaron
had,
Rodgers, and he's in the Super Bowl right now. So
he probably also had like 1,000 more yards. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only had like 4,100 yards this year compared to Tom Brady's like 5,000 something. I think Joe Burrow was the other 5,000 passing yards quarterback, but it might have been Justin Herbert. I think it's one of the other.
And you look at Tom Brady, you look at Joe Burrow. Those are team player guys. They play for the team. And Tom Brady, I mean, against the LA team who are now also in the Super Bowl, Tom Brady played great. He played not for stats, he played to win. And I think that's the mindset quarterbacks have to have in these championship high-level games. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers had that mindset going in, and I don't think he currently has that mindset.
Well, with Tom Brady as well, he will throw to any receiver that's on the field. I couldn't name the stat, but like the amount of receivers that he's thrown a touchdown pass to is ridiculous. He will throw to anyone out there. Aaron Rodgers, if he doesn't trust you, you are not getting the ball. And that's that. He trusts Davante Adams and Aaron Jones. And if you look at that 49ers game, look at who caught the passes. Nobody but Davante Adams and Aaron Jones. It's kind of ridiculous at this point that he can't throw to anybody but those two people.
And these wide receivers,
I think part of that might be his personality as well.
These wide receivers are in the NFL. They've clearly proven their talent. They're on the team for a reason. They're in Green Bay and they're playing at championship level. And Rodgers is not giving them a shot. Sure, they may have dropped 1 or 2 balls and that's lost his trust, but he's practicing with these guys and talking to these guys all the time. He's constantly going and picking favorites. It's selfish.
Well, listen, nobody's going to argue that Allen Lazard is a Pro Bowl talent, but he's an NFL wide receiver. If you throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. And you can't just force the ball to Davante Adams every time and then be mad when your other receivers aren't doing stuff because you're not throwing them the ball.
And then when Adams gets double coverage and Rodgers still throws to him, why are you doing that? I mean,
one great example from this is at the end of that game. It was a 3rd and long play. Davante Adams deep into like triple coverage. Mm-hmm. It was incomplete. If you look back at that play, Allen Lazard was wide open in the middle of the field, like for a first down.
Yeah.
So that just shows that Rodgers doesn't have trust in anybody down the field that's not Davante Adams. And he's gonna throw it to him every time. And in plays like that, you gotta take what you can get. Move down the field. I mean, you can't be going for it all or just going to your one guy because then any team can just triple cover Davante Adams every game and beat Aaron Rodgers.
All right.
Exactly.
Listen, we could talk all day about Aaron Rodgers being a bad teammate, how he's not going to win games, but
next year he wins the Super Bowl.
Oh, I hope not, because that's going to be a bad start to this podcast.
Yes, however, that would be.
Now it's time for a topic that I am very excited about, that I am ready to propose now, which is, as a Patriots fan, Mac Jones' future with the Patriots. I got a couple stats for you guys. Mac Jones, in his rookie year, he played well. He was just outside of the top 10, I believe, in most stats. He was a very good quarterback. But when watching these playoff games, and even outside of the playoffs with Justin Herbert against the Raiders, what he did in that last game, watching these playoff games, do you ever see Mac Jones doing what Justin Herbert did against the Raiders? Do you ever see Mac Jones doing what Joe Burrow did against the Chiefs and the Titans? Do you ever see the quarterback duel of Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen in that playoff game being Mac Jones? There's no way Mac Jones can get to that level. And I will prove it to you right now. When we're playing in a division that has Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and possibly Deshaun Watson, that's up in the air. Those are 6 quarterbacks that are going to be in the league for possibly the next 15 years in our division that I would argue Mac Jones does not have the ceiling of any of those guys. Now, pre-draft grade. We're going all the way back to all of these quarterbacks. Mac Jones, positives. He showed a good understanding of the intent and range concepts. He was not an overwhelming athlete, but fluid enough to consistently throw while on the move, which is fine. His negatives, he's essentially maxed out mechanically, not much more room for upside. Adequate but limited athlete. Does enough at the college level, but won't be able to get away with as much trying to create a throw at the NFL level. And his pro comparison was Chad Pennington. I just threw that in there because I thought it was funny. Joe Burrow, his positives, able to move up and out of the pocket with quickness and natural feel for defenders, can throw from multiple platforms. His negatives, 1 year of top-end production, 23-year-old rookie. His pro comparison was Andrew Luck, who was, if he didn't retire, would have been an all-time great. Justin Herbert.
I mean, one of the greatest prospects of all
Justin
time.
Herbert. Big, filled-out quarterback with a strong arm and excellent overall athleticism. Arm is strong enough to reach all levels of the field. Can run around the field and make throws anywhere. Played with a weak supporting cast of skill position players, which Mac Jones is doing right now. Negatives, struggled against the best competition and did not recover well in games that he was pressured and hit, which is clearly not anything for Justin Herbert anymore because he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league under pressure. And too conservative at times. His pro comparison is Carson Wentz, who was good. Moving on to
top 10 QB of all time. No,
moving on to Josh Allen. Allen's arm strength ranks as the best the scouts have ever seen. As an athlete, he uses 6'5", 237-pound frame and can run well over defenders. On the move, Allen can make throws without having to reset his feet. His negatives, film shows poor decision-making and errant passes, which he's obviously fixed now 3 years into his career. Patrick Mahomes, excellent arm strength, tough, takes big hits, can make all throws required, tremendous at making plays off script, can pick up yards on the ground. Weakness, can sail the ball too far, needs to develop a pro-style offense, which obviously he did. Deshaun Watson, displays complete inventory of passes with zip, changes the pace of the ball when needed, extremely athletic and ability to escape when things break down. Notice all of those players that I just said, without even counting Lamar Jackson, who obviously can get out of the pocket when he needs to. He's basically a running back who is really good at throwing. All of those players can make something happen when things break down. Mac Jones, his weakness, he cannot make things happen when things break down. That's not what he does. He's inside the pocket, and the NFL is changing to a league that you need to be able to make things happen when things aren't going your way. All of these quarterbacks are the best quarterbacks in the league now because of the things that they can do when things don't go their way. They can all improvise. Mac Jones, in college, he couldn't improvise. Here, he can't improvise. All these guys' rookie seasons, you were able to see that they were improvising. He's not doing anything that is special in any way. And I don't see him doing those things that are special. Maybe as a second-year quarterback, he'll learn how to run, but that's just not going to happen. If you want to argue that, I have more points, but go ahead.
I have nothing to argue. I agree. I don't think Mac Jones will ever be that guy. I think Mac Jones plays too much by the book, and I think a lot of quarterbacks right now are elusive in figuring stuff out. They do play by the book, but I think once under pressure, they scramble and make plays. I think when Mac struggles with that, he gets in his head and he says he doesn't know what to do. And I think he falls back on his coaching staff. And I think because he's had two of the greatest coaches of all time. He's had Saban and he's had Belichick. I think if you put him on a different team, I don't think he'll advance as much. I think I don't see Mac going far. I agree with you.
His ceiling is very low, in my opinion. Like, he probably will be a top 10 quarterback next year, and he can be a top 10 quarterback for a very long time. But when you watch the plays where Patrick Mahomes is scrambling around in the pocket for like 15 seconds and then makes a throw to Kelsey in the back of the end zone. That's not something Mac Jones is going to be able to beat in his career because he can't do that. And where the Patriots are right now, with Bill Belichick getting older, possibly retiring soon, I think if they can get a guy like Russell Wilson, if they can get a guy like Deshaun Watson so he's not on the Dolphins in their own division, I think they need to pull the trigger on that. Deshaun Watson could be suspended for an entire year. Like, we don't know his future, but he's 25 right now, I believe.
Yeah, 25 or 26.
He's 25 or 26. So if he's suspended for a year, then he's 27 and he still has 10 years of prime football left. And Deshaun Watson is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league who's going to win you those games, improvise, and win you games against Patrick Mahomes. Mac Jones is not going to win you games against Patrick Mahomes. It's plain and simple.
And we're not trying to compare Patrick Mahomes to Mac Jones. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not saying, but we're just comparing the best quarterback currently in the league to the standards of Mac Jones. And I think we all agree that Mac Jones will never live up to those capabilities.
Yeah, and if there's no way for us to get Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, who are the two guys that I think we should look at, then Mac Jones is going to be fine. Like, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. We're going to have more playoff appearances, but he's going to be dominated by Josh Allen for the next 15 years if he's the quarterback for all 15 years. I'm not saying get rid of him this year. I would only do that. Honestly, I'd only do that this year if we could get Deshaun Watson. Even Russell Wilson would be a little bit iffy because he's older. But at some point, we have to think Mac Jones is not going to be the guy.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, if you're when you have a coach like Bill Belichick, every year is win now. I mean, like, it's like obviously the last 20 years with Brady, like, you've got to be thinking Bill Belichick turning 70, probably on this, like, near the end of his career. He's got to be thinking, like, when I look across that field, is this quarterback better than my quarterback? Because, like, 9 times out of 10 in the AFC playoffs, you're going to be looking across that field, and Mac Jones will not be the better quarterback. I just don't see them being able to consistently win big games in the playoffs with a quarterback with the limitations like Mac Jones. And I know we don't want to compare him to Mahomes because he's not going to be Mahomes. When you're looking at a team like the Patriots, like Bill Belichick, I mean, rookie quarterback, they made the playoffs. Like, obviously they got blown out in the first round. Josh Allen had a great game. But, I mean, like, that's a pretty big accomplishment. And you got to be thinking, like, what could they do with a better quarterback than Mac Jones? Because you have to compare your quarterback to every other quarterback in the division if you're trying to win a Super Bowl.
And if you're looking at the games that were won, besides the Bengals beating the Chiefs and the 49ers making it as far as they did, most of the games in these playoffs were won by the better quarterback. The better quarterback won the game. Whoever played better as a quarterback would win the game. And Mac Jones is never going to be the better quarterback than at least Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And Josh Allen's going to be in your division for God knows how many years, 15. It could be 20 years that he's in this division. He's young. And Mac Jones is never going to be as good as Josh Allen because, and you can see it early, Josh Allen, they said here, the best arm strength they've ever seen, ability to run over defenders and make throws without having to set his feet. That's what the NFL is now. That's all the quarterbacks do now. If you can't do that as a quarterback, everybody likes to say that Bill Belichick can carry this team with his defense. It's not a defensive league anymore. You can have the best defense in the league. If you don't have the quarterback, you're not going to win playoff games.
I agree.
And we're not even looking at players like Zach Wilson in the own division. Obviously, the Jets, troubled franchise. But I think Zach Wilson has probably displayed some of those traits like Josh Allen and the other quarterbacks where he could end up being a really good quarterback. And then you have 2 top quarterbacks in your division that you have to face with Mac Jones.
And the
I think
possibility
Zach Wilson has the potential to be better than Mac Jones.
And we know the Dolphins don't like Tua. So if they get Deshaun Watson and Zach Wilson, like you said, ends up being good, that's 3 guys that are possibly going to be better than Mac Jones. I don't think Zach Wilson will be better than Mac Jones, but he has a higher ceiling.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, I mean, you could be looking at where you have the worst quarterback in your division, you're not going to win the Super Bowl that way.
If the Dolphins have Deshaun Watson, they're going to be the third place team in that division every year.
And you're not going to make the playoffs at that rate. And you're not.
No. In the AFC, no way.
And-
There's
and-
too many good quarterbacks in the AFC to go in as a third seed if you have Deshaun Watson.
And you're facing these top quarterbacks in your division, and you're going to face them multiple times a year. You're going to get dominated, and you're instantly going to lose, and you're just not going to make the playoffs.
I mean, realistically, the Patriots should have gone 0-4 against those teams. They went 1-3 against the Dolphins and the Bills, and that's with Tua. And the one game they won was just crazy conditions where Mac Jones.
That game didn't count.
Like
Mac Jones had nothing to do with that game.
Probably should have been a loss. Yeah, that probably should have been a loss.
Defensive
So you're already looking.
They could have had Brian Hoyer.
You're already looking at where you losing every game against those two teams, and that's without Deshaun Watson at quarterback there. So like you automatically should already be the third place team. So I would agree they should definitely move Mac Jones if they can. I think he's got great value to a team that's like
especially right now, just added to the Pro Bowl. Like that's pretty good as a rookie, and I am happy with Mac Jones if we're going to keep him for a couple of years. But his ceiling is just so low in a league that you need to have a high ceiling. I say if we can't get Deshaun Watson, draft another quarterback who has a higher ceiling and let him develop behind Mac Jones, because there's just no way we win a Super Bowl with someone who isn't a top 5 quarterback. The top 5 quarterbacks win the Super Bowl now.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the past 20 years of what quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl, the list is pretty much. Let me find. I have this list, but it's Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Nick Foles, Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Big Ben, and then Brad Johnson. But when you look at those names, obviously Brady has like 6. Yeah, so 3 of those. So all but 3 of those guys are probably Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So you're saying 3 Super Bowls. So I would say Nick Foles, Joe Flacco, and then Brad Johnson. Probably not Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Those are,
but that's 3 quarterbacks in the 20 years.
Those are happening in even different eras of football too. Because even 10 years ago was a completely different era of football. Mm-hmm. You didn't. Patrick Mahomes has changed this league, I think, into a league that you need the best quarterback. Josh Allen is another example, and they're all coming through the AFC. The NFC is not as good of quarterbacks right now. I think the AFC is the future of this league because they have all the quarterbacks and there's just no stopping them.
Agreed.
And then you get to the Super Bowl and you have to face Kyler Murray. So
true. I mean,
he's not going to make it to the Super Bowl, but
no.
Anyway, that's my whole point. I like Mac Jones. I think he's good for now, but if we can get Deshaun Watson, I don't see why we don't try to make a big move. I'd honestly do Wilson too. Wilson, I think Wilson, he's 33 right now. Another 7 years in him. The way he keeps his body in shape, like he does the same type of.
Yeah, he's second to Brady in like body maintenance.
I think he has another 7 years in him at least. So
and he's got the playoff experience as well, and the Super Bowl experience. It's not like,
and even if we say 5 years of Russell Wilson, like that's better than 15 years of Mac Jones if he's going to be the next Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
So
100%. Plus, I mean, you look at the Seahawks and the Texans; they could probably both use Mac Jones if they're going to move off those quarterbacks. I mean, if I were both of those teams and I were trading away my top quarterback, Mac Jones would be a great middle ground to kind of rebuild the roster and look for your next quarterback because he's on a rookie contract.
Completely agree.
He can win you games.
All right. It's enough Mac Jones talk. We'll get back to it eventually, I'm sure, in another episode. I'm sure people will be unhappy with that one. Real quick, Antonio Brown making headlines as always, saying that he's going to play for the Ravens. He wants to play with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson seems to want to play with him. I don't think it makes any sense. I don't think he should be in the NFL anymore. He is obviously very talented. I think he's still a top 15 talent in terms of wide receiver in the NFL. But it just makes no sense for any team to try to play with him. He's a cancer in the locker room. All the Bucs players are now saying that they had him as like a cancer all season, like he was terrible in the locker room. They didn't like him there. He was there because Tom Brady needed a safety blanket. That's why he was there. I don't think anybody should want to play with him. It doesn't make sense to me, but he seems to think he's going to the Ravens. Maybe Lamar Jackson needs that wide receiver because he did win an MVP without a true number 1 wide receiver. He could be the next great quarterback, but I don't think that Antonio Brown is the answer.
I think he's just a liability no matter where he goes. I mean, Tom Brady was the dream scenario for him. He has a quarterback vouching for him. I mean, he lived in Tom Brady's house, and it still didn't
Yep.
work out. He still left halfway through the season. I think that was probably the peak of like the number one team that could make Antonio Brown work. They made it work for a bit. They won a Super Bowl, but I mean, it's just not a long-term answer. I don't think anybody can make Antonio Brown work anymore, which is sad to say because I think he's one of the greatest receivers.
I think he's top 5 all time.
Yeah, and I mean, he definitely still has that top 15 talent, but there's just no reason to put that in your locker room, like especially with young quarterbacks. So,
Thomas, anything to say? You disagree?
I mean, honestly, I'd love to see him on the Ravens. I think it would bring the NFL to a.
it would be fun.
It would be fun to see him on the
watch,
Ravens. I don't think personally. I don't think you should go. I think maybe. I mean, the Bucks offered him $200K to get mental health treatment, and he says, "No, I have mental wealth."
Yeah. No.
So
I think he's done with football. I think he needs to.
I think he's done with
focus on himself. I don't want to be one of those guys saying that he has CTE because we can't figure that out until after someone's dead. Like you can't. It's kind of rude to be saying that he has CTE, but he's crazy nevertheless, and he's just a cancer to any team. I don't think any team should want to have him.
Yep.
All right.
I would agree.
New head coach hirings. We've got a lot of them.
Yeah, I think we have 4 now, which actually breaking probably while we were recording, but McDaniels is officially the head coach of the Raiders. Josh McDaniels, Patriots offensive coordinator. He's having a press conference currently, or it happened like an hour ago. But they also hired Patriots de facto GM Dave Ziegler, who was a pretty integral part of their recent rebuild. I think the Patriots had a really good draft this last year, and he was a big part of that, as this was the first year Belichick kind of left the reins. Personally, I think they might do okay. I mean, he has Derek Carr, but I don't know if Josh McDaniels can be a head coach in this league. I think he might be better off as a offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out very well the first time with the Broncos, I believe. I don't know. These last couple of years with the Patriots, it made me question if he was really a good offensive coordinator, or if he had Bill Belichick as his head coach and Tom Brady as his quarterback.
I'd agree with
Well,
that.
we'll see next year.
Past 2 seasons, especially without Tom Brady. I mean, obviously he left the team after that 2019 season, but I mean with Cam Newton and with Mac Jones, although they aren't Tom Brady, a lot of the play calling kind of felt weird. Like a lot of run plays on like 3rd and long, and just I don't know. I just didn't see a lot from Josh McDaniels that made me want him as the offensive coordinator. I'm kind of happy he's gone. I think it'll be better for Mac Jones. But yeah, and then the Giants hired Bill's assistant GM, Joe Shane is how it's pronounced, as I'm told. And then their new head coach will be Bill's offensive coordinator, Brian Dable. Both of these guys have kind of stated their commitment to Daniel Jones moving forward. I don't know if that's the best move. I don't really think Daniel Jones is going to be a great quarterback. I really don't understand.
That makes no sense. I would think coming into a new team as the head coach, you need to realize that Daniel Jones is not the guy. I don't know how.
What are you talking about, dude? Daniel Jones is that guy.
All right, buddy.
I will say he has rushing upside, but I just don't see it with him. I think he has some of the physical traits, but he's shown nothing. He's shown nothing.
He's been in the league.
He's been in the league since Kyler Murray has.
He's been in the league for too long, and he hasn't shown anything. Like they need to move on from him if they want to stop being the worst. Like they haven't had a winning record in like however many years.
Had a winning record ever. Like in the middle of the season, they haven't had a winning record in like a couple of years.
They have had a worse record than the Jets, I believe.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, in like the last like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So I like the hires. I think the Bills have done a great job rebuilding. I mean, they were like a relevant team up until like they drafted Josh Allen and completely revamped the roster. I mean, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL right now. I think at least top 5, if not top 3.
I'm excited to see where the Giants go.
I think they could do.
New York is a huge market. I think if you get some talent there, I think players are going to want to come play there. I think it's a great place to play. I don't know if the organization's the greatest, but I know that the location is one of the greatest.
Oh, yeah. I think they could bring in a guy. Honestly, I think Russell Wilson, definitely a guy to look at. It has been kind of rumored that if he is to move, he wants to go to a bigger market area for his wife and her job. I forget if she's like an actress or a model or something, but she needs a big market area. New York, obviously, a big market area. I think they have a pretty good team. I mean, like if you look at their like obviously they have like a terrible record, but they have a lot of good young players. And I honestly think Daniel Jones is the problem in part of that offense because Saquon's a good running back. Kenny Galladay was good with Matt Stafford. I think he could still be good if they can fix him. So I mean, like if you can just get a quarterback, I don't agree with the whole Daniel Jones thing at all. I don't know why they're doing that. It honestly might just be like all smoke because I don't understand why those two guys who I would believe are smart guys, as they were pretty big part of the Bills organization, would believe in Daniel Jones at this point.
They're just trying to sugar him up, trying to make him feel happy.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we have a couple more. So the Broncos, we already talked about this, hired Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. I don't know a whole lot about him, but obviously he's been with Aaron Rodgers. It could also be the same thing where that's also the Packers. Matt LaFleur is an offensive-minded guy, so it's just kind of there to be seen if the offense was more Matt LaFleur's or Hackett's to see if he'll succeed. I think it was probably the right way to go with. I think all these teams should be hiring offensive guys because I mean, currently you're looking in the league. A lot of the teams that are contenders are offensive-minded head coaches with young star quarterbacks. So I think what you have to do is get the offensive or get an offensive-minded head coach and get the quarterback right, and it's a recipe for success. And then the Bears hired Chiefs Executive Director of Player Personnel Ryan Poles to be their new GM. I don't know a whole lot about him either, but the Chiefs are a good organization. They've got some good players, so hopefully he can make some noise there. And then they hired the Colts defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus as the new head coach. I mean, the Colts have a good defense. I don't mind the hire, but I think they really needed to get an offensive guy in there for Justin Fields if they want him to become a good quarterback. Because I think Justin Fields can be a really good quarterback if they get the right pieces around him.
I agree. All right, all that head coaching stuff is good. Let's move on to, I know it's a big football weekend, but we do have some news in baseball. Let's move on to baseball now. A lot of talk with the Hall of Fame inductees going on. First of all, David Ortiz inducted into the Hall of Fame. Big news as Boston sports fans, but also for David Ortiz, legendary career out of him. I mean, what else can you say about the guy? He is one of the most clutch hitters in baseball history. He's a Boston legend, 3-time champion, World Series MVP, 7 Silver Sluggers, home run derby champion. There's not much else you can say. Over 500 career home runs. He's a legend.
Big Poppy, baby.
Big Poppy.
With that comes some controversy. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, both of their Hall of Fame candidacies are over now. They are no longer eligible to get into the Hall of Fame because they did not get in because of the PED use, which is, it came in a time where everybody was doing it, and there's a lot of outrage. I personally believe it makes no sense to keep these guys out, especially Barry Bonds, who is one of the best, if not the best, hitters in Major League Baseball history. The only reason why we don't put him at number 1 is because of the PED use. But Barry Bonds was an outfielder. If you look at the last outfielder to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, no PED use, 17 seasons, Larry Walker. He had 2,160 hits, 383 home runs, and a batting average of 313. Barry Bonds, in his 13 seasons that he played before having taken PEDs, 1,917 hits, which is about 200 less than Larry Walker in his 17 seasons, which he easily would have passed if he wasn't taking PEDs for a couple more seasons. He had a 290 batting average, which improved later in his career. It's hard to tell. That one could be PEDs, but it's still just below 300, which is a Hall of Fame mark. And in those 13 seasons, he had 411 home runs, which is about 30 more than Larry Walker had in his 17 seasons. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he even took PEDs. He's one of the greatest hitters of all time. The stats show it. If you took out all the seasons that he was taking these steroids, he's still a Hall of Famer. So it makes no sense to keep one of the best players in Major League Baseball history out of the Hall of Fame. Everyone agrees on it. This isn't a hot take. I don't know who the baseball writers are looking at, what their stats are. Some of them just think PEDs automatically you're not in. It makes no sense to me. Barry Bonds deserves to be a Hall of Famer.
I think what
I'd
the
agree with that.
MLB is trying to do is trying to keep it like a drug-free thing, and I guess that's a direction they want to go, but I don't think that's the standard that they should have against these players. I mean, everyone did it at that time period, and I think the MLB is trying to move away from, hey, we don't want people using these enhancements. We want people to just like everyone's normal on an even level. But I don't think you can count out Barry Bonds. I mean, like you mentioned before, he was a Hall of Famer before he was taking these drugs, and I think the MLB should look at that, but sadly, they can't change it, and it sucks.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, like even if their whole like motive was to obviously you want to stay away from PEDs, you want to keep an even playing field, no cheating. But I mean, like even if their policy was okay, let's just omit the years that they were taking PEDs. Like Barry Bonds would still have a Hall of Fame career, so I don't understand why he shouldn't be allowed in the Hall of Fame. I think a good precedent would probably be just omit the years. I mean, if they're still a Hall of Famer, he obviously still deserves to be in there. Hopefully they. I mean, obviously they probably won't amend it. It'd be surprising, especially after his eligibility has ended. But I hope they do look into that because I think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer.
Agreed. Not much else you can say about that. Roger Clemens is the other one. I don't have much stats on him, but he is a clear and obvious Hall of Famer as well. I didn't do as much research. But they're both guys that changed the sport of baseball. They were amazing their entire careers, and leaving them out of the Hall of Fame for doing something that everyone back then did when they had stats without taking them that were Hall of Fame stats, it makes no sense to anyone. People in baseball have been cheating the entire time baseball's been around. Even this past year, they implemented the new rule with the sticky stuff. Like they couldn't, it wasn't a new rule. You technically couldn't have it, but they started cracking down
Crack
on
down
it.
on it, yeah.
And now people are getting in trouble for it. And pitchers are openly saying, I'm having a hard time because I used to use it every game. Pitchers are openly saying that. Are you going to keep them out of the Hall of Fame for that? Obviously, it's not the same degree, but like, come
It is
on,
a
guys.
level of cheating.
It's everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone cheated. That's what everyone was doing at that time. Everyone's trying to get ahead, do anything they can to get ahead, and that's just the way it is. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before, should be a Hall of Famer after, and that should be the end of the debate. And I think we are going to end off today with some basketball talk from Thomas. What do we got in the basketball world?
So a couple teams we could see around the NBA trade rumors are, I would say, Portland. The weeks leading up to Damian Lillard's abdominal surgery, we expect Portland to embrace a possible one-season rebuild. And now with Little expected to miss a little bit of the season with his shoulder label tear, we could see maybe the Blazers tank for the rest of this season, but who knows? The Bucks do need another big guy. Regarding Brook Lopez's status, he currently is injured, and one of the front runners that they're looking at, they do need they need a Milwaukee front court rotation, and the Bucks are poking around for a center reinforcement ahead of the deadline. Semi Ojeleye is considered available for trade, and rival teams have called about Pat Connaughton, and Devontae DiVonizzios, sources say.
Oh, there's some weird names in the NBA.
There are some weird names. Yes, there is.
We're lucky we're not doing hockey today.
Yes. And then one other team, which is my favorite team, currently the Celtics, right before it only seen Marcus Smart has been one of the biggest talks on the Celtics trade block. Even with Smart, even if he was to leave, I don't know. And another huge name that I think Al Horford could be mentioned on the trade topping this week. He is 35 with a $14.5 million next season and $26.5 million salary guaranteed for any team searching up in cap relief. There is a limited market for the veteran center, but it could possibly go to the Bucks. Dennis Schroeder and Aaron Nesmith are also continued to be labeled as likely trade candidates. I think getting out of a tax apparent is a key goal for Boston.
Well, as far as the Trailblazers go, I think both sides, Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers, should be looking to part ways. Me, as a biased Celtics fan, I would love to see him go to Boston. I don't think it's going to happen, but it makes no sense. Damian Lillard, his whole career, has wanted to be the guy. He wants to win a championship without having to join a super team. But at this point in his career, he has to realize it's not going to happen in Portland. He needs another guy. He can be the number one on a team. He needs a number two. CJ McCollum is not that guy. It needs to be a guy that can help him win a championship. I think Boston's a good match because he has Jason Tatum. They'd probably trade Jaylen Brown away. Jason Tatum is not the leader that Damian Lillard is.
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard would bring that level of leadership to Boston. But even teams such as the Lakers, he could go to the Lakers in a trade for Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook should not be on an NBA team, in my opinion. I'm kidding. He should be a backup, but like they're not going to win a championship with Russell Westbrook. And I think if they had Damian Lillard, they'd be back in the contention. I think both sides should be looking to part ways there.
I think the Celtics should pursue Damian Lillard, and especially if they did trade Jaylen Brown. I mean, Damian Lillard says he doesn't want to go to a super team, and Boston currently isn't a super team. Currently, I believe we are 8th in the East. Like, we are not great right now. We are currently sitting in a playoff spot. We're 25-25 by the time of this recording. We are not the greatest team. If we went on a small run, we might be up there. We might be in the 4th or 5th spot. If we went on a 5-game win streak, we do face the Pistons a couple times coming up, and we face the Hawks a couple times coming up. Some lower level teams that I don't think they would make that big of an impact. I mean, Trae Young does his thing, but currently, I mean, we face the Cavs, but the Cavs are doing pretty well. But
Damian Lillard would be a number 1 to a 1B at some points to Jason Tatum. Damian Lillard would be the number 1. He'd be where he'd be in a championship contending team. If Damian Lillard was on the Celtics, he'd be the leadership that we need to get to a championship level. And he'd still be the number 1.
Celtics do need another scorer. Yes, they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they
just don't work together.
They just don't work well together. You see, either Jaylen has a good night or Tatum has one good night. I mean, recently I think Tatum had 38 and Jaylen had 31. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got the win, but like that was their first game where they've had major consecutive points. It's either one takes off or the other takes off. They don't work well together. It's sad but true. Yeah. It hurts as a Celtics fan.
Yeah, I agree. Marcos, you have anything to add? Marcos is not the basketball expert.
I'm not the big basketball guy, but I mean, when you've got two guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I mean, like on their own, they're both really good players. But currently, it's just not working. And I think the Celtics, I mean, with both those guys, I think you have a chance if you can add some more pieces like Damian Lillard to go for a championship. And while they're young, I mean, I think if you have to move off of one of them, it kind of sucks because they're both good players. But if they're not working, they're not working. And I mean, you said it yourself, they're hovering around 500. They need to make a change if they want to have a chance at the championship.
And I think another change personally for the future of the C's, which is another topic that we're kind of slowly easing into, is I don't like the new coach. I'm not a big fan. I think Brad Stevens currently did better. I'm just not. I think they need a new coach. His name's I can't pronounce it. I don't want to mess it up.
Ime Udoka.
What is it?
Ime Udoka.
Ime Udoka. I don't think Ime Udoka is doing a great job right now. With the talent that we currently have. I've been to a couple Celtics games. I've seen it firsthand, and I don't like the way he coaches. I don't think he makes the greatest decisions.
Agreed. And with that, I believe the first episode of Inside the Lines comes to an end. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, basically anywhere you can find a podcast, it will be there. Also, check us out on TikTok. Our username is Inside the Lines Pod on TikTok, and we will have a link to our Twitter and Instagram in the bio. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.